probably
Ooh. Okay.
a door
Start over.
popped into my head maybe 5 years ago. Got it. I need to click that. And because I was on the board at the AAOF, and I could see that doctors could contribute to the education of tomorrow's orthodontists, but there was never a platform for team members to have any skin in the game or make any contribution toward the education of the doctors. So I went to the board and I suggested that we create something. And I came up with an acronym of ADORE, meaning Auxiliary Donor to Orthodontic Research and Education. And it got tabled for a couple of years. And then I got a committee of 15 of us, and we went together and had a little more clout, and we launched it at the AAO in LA. We had a booth there and we got a lot of members to sign up. And then of course we went virtual the next year, and we went virtual last year. So we didn't have the exposure and all. So we're hoping to make up for that when we get to Miami next year. But it's a way for team members to have a little skin in the game, to make a donation of any amount, $10 or more, to help ensure, number one, that tomorrow's orthodontist will have the best education possible, but also number two, to ensure that we have a specialty, an orthodontic specialty that remains and doesn't just become another job or another type of dentistry that's done universally. So I made a donation, and my committee has, and several hundred other people. So we encourage anybody who's listening today who is not a member of ADORE to contact the AAO. These lovely ladies here, Jackie and Mindy, are your spokespersons for ADORE, and you can make a contribution and become a member, and then you get little perks like this. And when we have the meeting live, then there will be perks available for you as well being there. I think the biggest perk is just knowing that you're an example to everybody else that's a team member, that this is your career, it's not a job, that you're passionate about it and you do adore your profession, and you want to make sure that your great grandchildren have the best possible orthodontist, most educated, most knowledgeable to treat those little ones when you're not around. I know I do. So that's what ADORE is about. Do you adore your profession? Then make a little pledge and help support the education of people that are not even in orthodontic programs yet, down the pike. All those people that are going to treat your little ones that might not be born yet. So
it could be some of those listening even today that go on to become orthodontists.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting. Last week, I got an email from UCSF, the ortho department. And this year, for the first time ever, it's an all-female class.
Wow.
There's a freshman class coming in. And I just thought that was pretty cool, because we've seen over the years,
it is a
token
very cool.
female,
yeah.
But this year is all female. And I went,
yeah.
woo, that's great.
And Lynn and Jackie and I were just at the GORP meeting, the resident meeting in St. Louis, and over half the room was female. And didn't they announce, and it's now 55% of all the ortho schools, 55% are female students. So we have crossed the halfway threshold, and there are more lady doctors coming up than guys. Not that it's a competition, but hey, let's go. I like it.
No, it's
I
great.
like it. I know doctors who could not become orthodontists for years because they wouldn't accept women into the program. So it's nice that we're making a stand and having a voice. So it's great. So those of you who are already logged on and early, did you bring questions? Jackie has some house rules about that. If you would take over, Jackie.
Sure. So if there are any questions from the audience, please feel free to post them in the chat or share them with the group, and let us know what questions you have for our panel today. And we will take turns and share responses, and make sure that this lecture/webinar is recorded so we can share the answers down the road with those that weren't able to attend today.
Right.
And outside of that, I'll kind of keep an eye on time and things along those lines as well, just to make sure we're able to get through any questions we have.
Perfect. That's why we have you, Jackie and Mindy. Thank you. I also will note, we got 6 questions that were sent in ahead of time. So if you don't pipe in with a question right away, we can toss out one of the ones that were already emailed in. But since you're here live, Lynn and Nick, do you have?
No, I'd love to know, am I supposed to put it in the chat or is it okay to talk?
You can chat.
Oh,
Talk.
thank you. Thank you so much. I'd love to know what is the most memorable, tell us an experience that's one of your most memorable in the field that maybe changed how you thought about working in an orthodontist office. I think I've heard yours, some of yours, Rosemary, but I know just what is something that's most memorable to you?
Great question.
Good question.
Great question.
Lynn, what's interesting, oh, go ahead, Rosemary.
No, you go first.
What's interesting is I started 47 years ago in the industry, and 3 of my closest best friends today are patients that I met in the orthodontic office when I started out as a chairside assistant. That says something to me about the impact we had as assistants or administrative, whatever position we had in the office. We truly got to know our patients and parents. And so when I look back at how I met my friends and different people, the fact that 3 of them were patients that I used to work on and change wires and, place bands, I think that says a lot about our industry.
Yeah.
That's truly incredible and shows just how important it is that you build those alliances, or just that you have that much in common with your patients. I just think that's incredible.
Right.
Thank you,
And
Carol.
oftentimes it's the doctor that's the influence, and somebody becomes an orthodontist because of the doctor who treated them. But when it's a team member that gets that honor, that a patient goes into the profession because of you, I think, as Carol said, for us, that's really profound. I have one as well, and she was in an audience, a general dental audience, and I hadn't seen her for 20 years. And she was my patient when she was about 7 or 8. And I let her sit at my chair, and her shirt matched mine at work, and I gave her a name tag. I've lectured about her, and I made her feel so important because I said, you're like our team member. And I let her sit in the chair, and she greeted patients. And then she had to do this at every single appointment because I obviously created a monster. And 20 years later, she's in the audience. She stands up, walks up to me, takes the microphone off, and tells the whole audience that she's now a dental hygienist because I used to let her sit in my chair and greet patients, and I made her feel like she was a member of the team. I had no idea. I had no idea. And I was just bawling tears for her to share that publicly, but it was the first time I had heard it as well. So moments like that are unforgettable for us as team members. They really are. Yeah.
Thanks, Rosemary.
Yep. Another one for me was, I was going to jump in earlier. My doctor, after a very stressful day in the office, and we got out very late and we were all just exhausted and totally spent, he put a Post-it note on the windshield of my car. It was dark and I had gotten in my car and I had the engine going and I was in reverse, and I looked at the windshield and there was a Post-it note on the windshield. I had to stop the car, get out, reach around, get the Post-it note, and he had handwritten, "I can't do this without you, Ro. Thank you." I saved it. I still have it.
Yeah, that's neat.
To have those moments when you feel so appreciated. Yeah, we all need it. We all need that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's probably too many, Lynn, to list.
Well, that's another incredible story. Both, those are wonderful. Thank you.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Joni, do you have a story you wanted to share? Sorry, I was
Go ahead,
not to
Joni.
interrupt.
Joni's the only one who never worked in an ortho
I was
office.
going to say, I'm the only one who came from it from a different angle. I had actually three siblings who had braces when they were kids. But during that time, I was in college and really had no interactions with them about it, except my kid sister. When I finished graduate school and I moved back home. I lived back home for about the first 9 months, and she had completed her treatment and her braces were off. Prior to that, Norma would look down, cover her mouth a lot. She had what we would call horse mouth. We didn't have technical terms, okay? And she ends up being one of the MCs for her senior variety show, belting out songs like Barbra Streisand could die for, and a beautiful smile that just radiates. And it totally changed her personality. And I really didn't remember that until I got involved in orthodontics back in 1986, when a fellow who I had trained as a public speaker started a company that did practice management seminars for orthodontists. And then it dawned on me that this is a life-changing profession. And I related it back at that time. It occurred to me what had happened with my sister Norma. And by the way, several of you know Norma. Rosemary, you've met her, and your granddaughter has even taken a voice lesson from her.
Right.
So this is a life-transforming profession. I like to call it, you transform lives, and the vehicle that you do it with is straightening their teeth.
Yeah, absolutely, Joan.
But it's a transformational business.
Right. Nick, did you have a question with you?
I put one in the chat, but
What does it say?
with Joni saying what she said, Carol, months ago we were on a Zoom together back in March, and Carol had made a comment about, Joni, you'd said it was a life-changing profession, which I think we all on here believe that. And Carol made a really good point that those of us that went into the industry in the 80s or before, this was our profession. We went into this knowing this was going to be our life's work, right? And wherever that took us and whatever lives we touched, that was going to be great. But Carol made the comment that the generation that's in it now, many times we see that it's a job, it's a stepping stone to something else. And I'm curious, Carol, I know you've been thinking and praying on this, and it's been on your heart and your mind for a while. Have you thought of any really good ways to engage this, our Gen Zs and our millennials that are stepping into this space to go, this is life-changing, not only for you as a giver and a server, but for those that are receiving that? Like, how can we get that message? What's the best way to do that to keep them, like Rosemary, this Adore thing, amazing. I think this is great. We've wanted a platform for the auxiliaries for years, right through the AAO. Like, we know that we're part of the bigger picture. And like your doctor said, they can't do it without us. And many times in many offices, depending on the state you're in, if you're chair side, you're doing the majority of the work for that patient, and the bigger relationship is actually with you.
Right.
How do we get that message to the new generation? It's not just like back in the day when we were doing our dental assisting training. It's not just suck and spit, right? It's more.
Yeah.
Sorry, from home, the cat, Zoom.
Yeah.
At least I didn't appear as a cat, just to be. But anyway,
I'd like
I wonder if you've thought further about that. What's a good way?
That is a really tough question,
Yeah.
and a very relevant right now, very relevant, because
Actually, I had a similar question that came to me.
Mhm.
It's related. It's not quite the answer, but it's related to what you're saying, Nikki. And I think part of the problem, especially right now when people are under such great pressure to fill empty spaces in their team slots, people have a tendency to just look for warm bodies, and it's anybody. They just want anybody. They're hiring out of desperation, which will never accomplish the long-term vision that you're professing. So I think that part of the issue, part of the solution lies in two areas. One is I recommend on the website for doctors that you get some of your long-term employees do a video of why they're in the profession and why they've chosen this doctor in particular, by the way, so that it's an opportunity for them to brag about the doctor. But it's more important is to talk about how this has transformed their lives and been such an important growth factor for them. The other aspect, and it's more of an immediate thing, is that when you do hire somebody, that in the hiring process, the first thing you have to ask is, why do you want to work in an orthodontic practice? So you have to start to uncover what their personal motivations are. But let's say they pass through all they jump through all the hoops and you've hired them. What's really important is, how did you onboard them? I had a client said one time to me, she said, I can't compete with Google. They're offering them X number of dollars a block. I said, you're not supposed to compete with Google. You are a profession. And what you have to be promoting is, when you're looking for the job, the candidates, you have to be promoting that this is a profession, number one. Then when you start onboarding them, you make it really special. And what you're going to do is underscore relationship. You want to develop them being loyal to the team and develop relationships. So the first day they walk into the practice, their name tag is already there. There's flowers from the doctor, a welcome sign. That first week, everyone gets to go out to lunch individually, get to know each other. She should have I say she, it's because most of the clinical assistants or most of the team members are female, but regardless, there should be a team buddy who's there strictly for the purpose of, here's the great restaurants, here's the shortcuts to the place, here's what, all the social aspects of the team. And they should be shadowing everybody in the practice for the first week, spend some time in other areas that they don't work in before they actually start their own training, so that they start feeling a member of the family. Google can't give you family. And then in that conversation, you start making sure that you're underscoring relationships with the patients so that they know that they have impact. People want to make a difference. It's one of the greatest motivating factors, especially with millennials, by the way. They want to be in a business that actually makes a difference in life. And that's what you have to be promoting, that we make a difference. You can't just say we're looking for an assistant. We're looking for a team member for a transformational team.
Right. A new member of our family. And I think to echo everything Joni says, I totally agree. But so many practices fail to spend any time teaching the new person their culture or the history of orthodontics or what orthodontics is. They get hired and think, my job is to answer phones. My job is to clip a wire. No, it's much bigger than that. And I think the first few days need to be spent like at Disney, when you sit down for 2 weeks in the Disney Institute and you learn about Walt Disney and his vision and who Mickey Mouse was. And you just sit in a classroom for 2 weeks before you go in the park. We could spend a day. Here's the culture of our practice. Here's why our doctor became an orthodontist. Here's why our team is all here. Too many offices fail to spend the time doing that. They just sit you down and say, answer the phone, it's ringing. And too many team members learn there's a new member of the team at the morning huddle, or they get an email the night before. Oh, by the way, we hired somebody new. Well, that's not the way you do it. You got to make a bigger deal about it and show them the bigger picture, I think. So, and plus,
as a matter of fact, there's a book called Why, the Why of Things.
Like Joni, Carol, and I, when we lecture at AAOs and other meetings, when we share our passion, hopefully somebody in the audience is learning there's more to this than answering the phone or clipping a wire.
Right.
So we need people on the pulpit who are passionate, who are sharing that this is a life-changing profession, not a phone answering job.
There was a book, and it's called The Why. Was
Mhm.
it? I'm trying to remember.
Simon Sinek.
Say his name again.
Simon
Sinek. Yes, he has great YouTube or a lot of YouTube channels, stuff on that. Really good information. Start with why.
Yeah.
It was funny, yesterday I actually had my teeth cleaned. So I spent some time with my hygienist, and she also is an instructor at a dental assisting school in the Bay Area. And she was talking how sad it was to see in a, these programs are either 6 or 9 months, very short. She said, they have to learn on their own through lots of reading assignments, because she has such a short time to teach them a skill. And these are for, dental assistants to get their hands on. And we were talking about the shortage, and she said it's so disappointing to see in a short program how many kids within the first 2 weeks drop out because they don't want to be bothered to show up, because their labs have to be in person where everything else is online. And so she and I had a nice conversation, and we talked about getting the doctors more involved in promoting our career, similar to what you said, Joni. I love the idea of a video and promoting it, but those offices could also offer a summer internship to their patients for high school students to come on board. We should be reaching out to junior high and high school for career days and talking
Exactly.
more about you're what we used to call a secretary. You have opportunities to be administrative business, entrepreneurs. You have clinical coordinators and lead assistants, and you have Invisalign coordinators. There's so much more than what we used to think that entailed as far as job descriptions. Utilizing internships, kind of letting them know that it is a career, like it's not a job, and there's opportunities. And I love kind of walking my path back and saying, I went to a 2-year dental assisting school back in the days when they had them. And my goal was like what Nick was saying. I was doing that to bide my time before I could get into hygiene school. Well, once I got a taste of dentistry, I didn't think I wanted to go to hygiene school. I thought it would be more exciting to do different things. And I had no clue that after 10 years of being a hands-on dental assistant, I'd have an opportunity to be a treatment coordinator and a marketing coordinator. And then I started speaking for the AAO. And then I went to work for a consulting company. And, the opportunities that were there then, and I think we have even more now of ways you can get involved and truly create a career. And there's not a glass ceiling holding you back.
Perfect.
And you can also, the prime group for attracting those kinds of people who are interested is for the doctors to offer the internships to their patients.
Yes.
Not to just go to a school, but to actually have a conversation. Like there are going to be some patients who seem to have more interest or tend to be your A patients. They follow all the rules. They're eager, they're interested. Offer them an opportunity. Have you ever thought about coming in, just watching and circling with us, shadowing us for the day,
And
during
many
the summer?
doctors do that, Joni. In many practices, they do that.
Yes.
In my own practice, we let a 7th grader see patients, and she got so excited. When she was in high school, she came in part-time and she emptied the trash and she cleaned the office at the end of the day. Then we sent her to a dental assisting program. Then she worked in the office, and then at that time I retired. Fast forward another 15 years, she's now working in an orthodontic office here in San Diego. She debanded 3 of my grandchildren.
That's awesome.
And she was my patient when she was 7, 8, 9 years old.
That's
And
awesome.
here she is working on my grandchildren. So being able to do programs like that in your office where you take a smart, energetic, positive attitude kid who's got something special and they're interested, let them do something. Let them get a taste of it, because you never know where it's going to end. You just don't.
Do you
And
feel like
if
now's the
doctors,
prime
go ahead.
time to do that? Like right now, because I feel like, Carol, when you were talking, when I listened to you in March, I felt like you were kind of the Mike Rowe of the orthodontic world, who is going, hey, you don't have to have $5 million in student loans to be crazy successful and to contribute something really amazing to society. Do you feel like now is kind of like a prime time to kind of go back to that mentality? Because our generation going to dental assisting school while we were biding our time for hygiene school, or whatever the plan was, a lot of people did those programs at like trade school as part of high school and then got their leg in and was like, this is the best job ever. I don't want to go back to school. I want to keep going. I feel like now with there was a whole time frame. My son's part of that because he's 34, where everybody went to college. It was you all went to college. That was, and I'm not saying education isn't great. Education is amazing. You should get as much education as you can, but not everybody has that same student mindset, but maybe they have crazy great hand skills and common sense where physics is more their jam, I guess. And so maybe figuring that out, I almost feel like there's a prime opportunity now for these offices maybe to partner with high schools and offer a scholarship to somebody with maybe a job at the end of it, because everybody's training from the ground up in ortho now, really, aren't they?
I'd say most offices are doing that, and many practices that I know of do give scholarships to their patients. They're not specifically to go into the dental profession, but they'll pick out 10 students every year and give them a $1,000 scholarship based on attitude and performance and social work in the community, as well as grades. That's a pretty common thing. I think now, Nick, the problem we're facing is this post-COVID apathetic world of people that don't want to work hard, and they're not coming back. Many are not coming back to work. And as Joni said earlier, the doctors are being forced to hire just anybody who says, I'll take the job. And the problem is they hire a mediocre candidate, and 2 or 3 weeks into training, they decide this isn't for me. And so they leave. It's too much work, or there's too much to learn. And so right now we are at a crisis, not just in ortho, but I mean, you look at in front of Jack in the Box and McDonald's and Staples, every store has "we're hiring" sign out in front. And every orthodontist is being faced with that now, finding those quality people who really want not only a good job, but a lifetime career. It's a real problem. So right now might not be the time to get this going, because of the situation that the workforce is being forced to deal with. It's really quite sad. I have so many offices that
like
are
Joan was
running
saying,
short staff because they can't find anybody.
we're not necessarily competing with Google, but one of the things that tech companies or any big business company has always had that we didn't have in orthodontics was a retirement plan or medical dental benefits. And it always amazed me that we were in dentistry, but we didn't have dental insurance. And it just seemed like that didn't make sense to me. And so luckily I'm seeing more and more orthodontists offering some sort of retirement plans and helping them with financial planning, and which makes it more like a career. And it was funny that the hygienist yesterday made a great point. She said, quit putting in your ads, wherever you're posting ads for hiring people, quit putting in competitive salary. Tell them what you're going to pay them. And, being on the West Coast in California, maybe our pay scale is higher, but in dentistry in California, no one's going to touch a job for under $25 an hour. Most of the time it's going to be 30 to 35 if you have experience. And so the doctors have to make some sort of investment and think of that. You're spending money up front, but you're not paying to retrain, and the turnover cost, and being able to train and have a long-term team member stay with you is priceless.
Yeah.
So we do have to look at, although we're a different industry, this profession, we have to offer some good perks for people to want to stay long-term.
Yeah.
Carol, I'm not playing devil's advocate here, but I agree with you that those things would be very attractive to me and to a lot of people I know. But a lot of the doctors that I speak to, they've offered retirement plans. They don't care. They don't want it. They'd rather just have the money. And so, because when they break down what their salary actually is, when you factor in the taxes and the medical insurance and if they buy the uniform, They don't care. They're just looking at one thing. What's my net on the paycheck? What's my net? That's the only. Now, is this true for everybody? No, but the younger the person is, the more true it happens to be. They don't even think about retirement. Who cares? That's 50 years from now. What do I care? And that's part of the problem. I think this is where I agree that you have to offer the well, as you say, the competitive salary. And I'm going to go back to something that you said, I think, Rosemary, about the culture, that they don't take time to train the culture. One of and again, this ties into one of the other questions I got about that morning huddles are boring. Well, the morning huddle can be one of those little pieces that you put in for training the culture so that you're reinforcing what's different about us. So if the morning huddle is boring, you're not doing the morning huddle right. The morning huddle should be that time, should be like breakfast is supposed to be the best meal of the day. Well, your morning huddle should be the best meeting of the day. You start off, and by the way, I recommend that the doctor not be the leader, right, and that you transfer or you rotate who's going to lead the morning huddle every week. It's somebody new. Yep. And there's a specific format they got to follow. Who are the emergency cases coming in? Who are the new patients coming in? Are there any things that we need to know? All that stuff that you normally do in the morning huddle, that stays the same. But what the rotating leader gets to do is infuse the spirit of the work. So it might be that you come in the morning dancing to a song and everyone gets up and dances. The next week's leader may have inspirational quotes every day. Somebody else will have a cheer at the end of the meeting. But it's something that you continually infuse. What are we about? So you start off the morning huddle with the why. Why are we here? That's what the mission is. And you don't just have a stale mission that somebody has to take it off a shelf and read it. You infuse your own spirit into it so that somebody reads the mission and then they say, what it means to me is, I was raised Catholic. And I used to say, we say the rosary, and that's like 50 Hail Marys. That's a lot of prayer. So the object of the game became to get through it. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with Jesus, Holy Mary, Mother of God. You don't even hear it. You have to breathe life into it. That's what inspire means, to breathe life in. So when you read the mission, it's not just, well, we are committed to blah. What does that mean? Every person who walks in here, I'm going to personally make sure that they walk out with a smile. So that you start boiling it down to what's it mean to you. And that's how you keep on infusing the spirit and the culture of the practice into everybody.
Yeah. It's one of my biggest complaints in practices is their failure to understand the value of that morning huddle. They think it's just to talk about how many patients and what time is lunch and, who has a pokey wire. That's this much of it. The bigger, broader meaning is to set the tone for the day and to remind us all why we walked in the door 5 minutes ago. What are we really here to do? It's not to clip a pokey wire or to deliver an aligner. And it's to get focused. Focused. Leave your home stuff at home. Get focused, and then get your energy up. I have a grandnephew who played for Syracuse football, and he had a videotape of just before they left the locker room and ran out onto the field. You had 50 guys jumping up and down. They probably shook the stadium, just yelling, boom, getting their energy up like that. And they all ran out, This is how you get your energy up. You forget about the cat who threw up on the carpet before you left. You forget about the traffic that you ran into trying to get there. You get your focus and you get energy up. You walk out of there, it's showtime. So it's not just a slogan, it's showtime. It's easy for us to say that because we believe it and we preach it. It's harder to instill it in other people who don't want to lead that morning huddle, who don't have that kind of energy.
Well,
they need people on their team who do, so that they can watch it in action. And
you
see
start
how
with
it
somebody who
changes.
loves it, and you make it mandatory for everybody.
Yeah,
Right.
and then you see how
Everybody's
it
got to do it.
changes. Yeah, it changes the vibe of the day when you have somebody who leads the day doing that versus the doctor who says, what's the production? What's the collection?
Right.
Right.
How come
Of
it's
the
so low?"
offices we've all worked in over the years, I would say that one of the key traits of being a successful orthodontic office is having a good morning huddle.
That's so true.
If offices want to improve and they spend and invest time in continuing education and making their practice better and all of this, that morning huddle is a key part of it, as well as when Rosemary was talking about introduce them to the culture. When you go to work, if you don't know that culture, if you don't know that doctor's core values and beliefs, you're going to have a hard time aligning it and following that leadership and
Right.
motivation. So one of the questions that I had was, what are some things that you think are important in successful practices? And I think it's finding a doctor that has core values, beliefs that you align with. That morning huddle, as you mentioned, Joan, so important. And there needs to be, I'm going to say, lateral leadership. In other words, the one complaint that most team members have is being micromanaged. Nobody wants to be micromanaged. And so we want to have input as a team member. We also want to feel that we help kind of direct our own daily job and how our team works and approaches that why. And you've got to hire people who believe in that morning huddle. And we may have to hire some and get them motivated and trained that way. But it's finding people who are inspired by inspiration. And that may be a challenge as we talk about some of the generations and changes in just basic work ethic. And we've certainly seen that over the years, but successful practices, and isn't always that bottom line number. Is
Right.
it a non-toxic work environment? Does it encourage people to grow personally and professionally? Are we contributing beyond just ourselves as far as being successful, but do we give back to our community? And how are we making a difference in the big picture of orthodontics? And those are the practices that I admire, and I watch them, and there's just key characteristics about them that make them successful.
Yeah. And also to add to your list, Carol, going home at the end of the day, feeling that you've made a contribution
Yes.
to either the whole practice or to your team or to your doctor or to that one patient in that one chair. There has to be a feeling of, why did I show up today? What was my purpose here today? Do I want to come back tomorrow and do it again? I think, and when you have those moments, you should share them at tomorrow's morning huddle. There should be a category in the morning huddle of kudos or applauses so that you can say, oh, yesterday, Mrs. So-and-so said that Carol was the best assistant she's ever had. And Carol, she didn't say it to you, but I want you to hear. Just feeling those moments of gratitude and purpose.
One of the things you kicked off the word gratitude. I think that's an essential core value. There's
Yeah.
some that I think people can choose, but gratitude is at the top of the list along with integrity. But so
Yeah.
what I've had people do sometimes is they'll have a flip chart in the room where they're doing the morning huddle, whether it's a staff lounge or wherever they're doing the morning huddle. There's a flip chart. And before the meeting starts, there's a title on the flip chart. It says what, and you can change this from week to week, but it says, what am I most grateful for today?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, and there can be no duplicates. And you keep the same piece of paper up for the entire week, so that by the time you get to the end of the week, you've got 60 or 70 or 80 things and people start waking up to a very different way of thinking about their life. The following week, you put, what am I most proud of? Who do I love, or who loves me? I mean, you can start changing the questions so that they're always giving you a focus on how wonderful my life is. And you keep on reinforcing that sense of gratitude.
Perfect.
Joan, you
Want to
were,
change gears for a
Oh,
moment?
okay.
Is there another question? Because we've been on this one question for quite a while.
Did you ask me something, Carol?
I started to say just, there was a time when you were in an office where I was, and they were
Oh.
building their mission statement. And once we went through that whole exercise of different key words, integrity, honesty, commitment, gratitude. This particular office took those top 10, built it into their mission statement and made ribbons. So every
Yes.
week we wore a ribbon. All team members wore a ribbon in that office. That was a reminder that this week we're really focusing on integrity. Next week it was communication, the following week. And that was a great way to make that a daily habit. And that was something that you had triggered. You may remember. It's been
I
a
do
while ago.
remember, as a matter of fact, Carol, the doctor told me later on that it stimulated conversations with the patients.
Yes.
They would say,
yes.
what's the red ribbon for? Is this Cancer Week? And they would say, or Heart Week? And no, this is because, and it referred back to the mission statement, which is on the wall in the colors.
Yes.
And then people started bragging about, well, my doctor and my practice,
It really made a difference in the team, but also patients and parents seeing that you were walking that talk
right.
you believed in. So I want
Made the culture very real
yes.
to everyone.
Going back to Nick's question. So, when we're talking about trying to get new team and how do we train and communicate in team culture, I agree that there's a lot of people that could bypass, a 2 or 4 year degree and get hands-on and have a great career. And I'm just wondering if there isn't where do you go for that training? Maybe Rosemary, Joan, and I, and anybody who's been in this industry over 40 years, need to create an academy of just focusing on those people skills and getting them involved. I think there's a need for it. I don't know. Maybe
That's
some
our
of you know.
retirement job, Carol.
That's our
We're gonna
retirement
open up
job. Yes.
A charm
think we should
school
do
for
that.
orthodontic employees. There we go.
Yeah.
We
And,
can call it the Door School. See there?
Yeah. Adore School. There we go. That's wonderful. Let's
Teaching how
talk
to-
more about that.
Yeah.
They have an opportunity to come visit Napa sometime during the program. They'll visit Rosemary in San Diego, and they'll visit Joan in New Jersey,
York.
New York.
So what a perfect, no retirement.
Transcontinental.
We got work to do. I mean, Nick, you've seen a lot of changes in the years with this. What do you see that's out there that maybe is contributing to better communication and education? And
It's making it better or worse.
well, we'd like to think it's getting better, but I know there's some real
Good point.
challenges.
Yeah, the worst list could be longer and we'll run out of time. But what makes it better? What out there, other than orthodontics, what in the world can make it better for young people? Because I think, as I said earlier, I think it's a crisis. That might be a strong word, but it's a real problem right now, even outside of ortho. But in our
There's an
profession,
apathy there.
there is a huge apathy in finding, well, just like today, there are many more people who signed up for this webinar, but they're not on the screen. Now, I don't know what the reasons are, and I hope it's not apathy. I hope nothing happened that they're not joining us today, or maybe they're listening. But the fact that we make commitments and then we don't follow through, or we say yes to a position in a practice and then we change our mind 2 weeks into it, or we slack off in our attitude and our energy level, and we can't keep blaming COVID for everything
No.
in the world that's going awry. We have fallen on that crutch for such a long, it's post-COVID. Well, let's be the profession that goes over the hump and makes it different. I think lack of having an in-person AAO has been a huge crutch for our profession, just losing not only the lectures and the education, but the camaraderie. And I haven't seen Carol live. I haven't seen Joni live. I haven't seen any of you, for a couple of years, other than the GORT meeting. Thank you for being there. But I think just losing that opportunity to invigorate each other, because we do when we come together for those 5-day meetings every year. That's always a boost for all of us that attend. But there's got to be other things that we can do, because we don't have an AAO now for a year. We can't just hold off another whole year and hope that people are going to get kicked in the butt and say, yeah, this is awesome. Let me go get that career life-changing job. I don't
And I
know.
wonder how many people are really
Yeah.
involved in their just local dental assisting society. I mean, that was something when I first got out of school and started
Yeah.
working as a dental assistant. It was like it was very prideful to be part of that group and
Absolutely. Me too.
become an officer. I seriously, I can't think of anybody that I know in, younger than me that's involved in their local dental assisting, or they're
Yeah.
doing,
Yeah.
they are wanting to get involved with the regional or state programs, and there's opportunities there. And again, maybe we've been limited a little bit, but there's still ways to stay involved. And it's getting beyond ourselves and reaching out, because those are great programs to get involved in. So I don't know if, what the answer is to try to get people involved beyond just showing up at their office doing their thing, but how do they protect and help the profession grow and
Exactly.
stay
And
strong?
then that's one of the ways, Carol, that I even got started in this profession as a consultant and speaker. My doctor actually volunteered me to do a roundtable at the PCSO in 1994. We were going to the meeting and he came to me a few days before and he said, oh, by the way, I put your name down to do a roundtable at the meeting. And I said, a what? What's a roundtable? He said, oh, you're going to sit at a table during lunch and you're going to talk to 10 people about seeing a new patient. I went, oh my God, I can't do that. He said, you do that every day in this exam room over here. And that launched a career for me that I never thought I would have. But getting people involved to volunteer, to give a course at a community college or to a high school career day, or at their local constituent meetings. You can volunteer to do things there that give you just a taste of, this is bigger than clocking in and clocking out and
Yes.
doing my daily job. There's more that I can do. Adore is one way. Get involved, become a member of Adore and meet with us. Come to our table at the AAO, sit with us, pick our brains. There's 15 on the committee. Together, we have 540 years of orthodontic knowledge. I mean, if you can't learn something from 15 of us, there's something wrong with a person who might come and sit at our table. There's lots of opportunities, but to get that word out so that people know it and avail themselves of it, it's a different story.
I think there's two conversations. One is the macrocosm that we're having right now about the profession as a whole. But then there's the microcosm, and that's where we have the greatest amount of leverage. I remember years ago, one of the most simplistic mission statements I'd ever heard from a doctor, and he was extremely successful, was that every person, when they leave here, the world looks a little bit colder to them. Having been with us, the world looks a little colder. And at the time he was practicing, things were not in crisis. Things were relatively calm and productive. So for him to have that as his motto was kind of curious to me at first, except he did that with his team as well as the patients, as well as the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started reaching out into the community so that everything that they did a lot of volunteer work in the community. If there was a health fair, they always had a booth. And it was mostly to educate potential team members more than it was to educate or get more new patients coming in. So when people start to view and they own their job in that level, and when the patients start to feel that kind of connectedness to the practice, they listen to this as a possibility. Just like there are a lot of people, when I ask in the room, how many of you are in orthodontics because you had treatment? Half the room raises its hand.
Right.
And that's where our entree is. If we start building with building the blocks down here, eventually we'll have a skyscraper. I think that's how skyscrapers are built from the bottom up, not the top down. But I think we have to focus a lot on the individual practices, because that's where you can make the biggest difference.
Right.
As an organization, I think the organization needs to be promoting more doctor involvement and team involvement in local training programs, high schools, the career days, everything that you've mentioned so far.
Yeah.
It's got to be both.
So
Lynn?
has there ever been a program where you have the doctors and the team members together? It's kind of like, this is what your doctor wishes you knew. And then to the doctor, this is what your team member
Oh,
wishes.
well,
you knew.
I do that every time I go into a practice to consult.
Oh, that's
I
good.
pick- I pick the team's brain confidentially before I
Yeah.
get there. I
Mhm.
pick the doctor's brain and I promise confidentiality. And then when I get there and we have an all-day team meeting, I make sure that I interject what each said, but I do it anonymously. So
Mhm.
it becomes part of the open discussion. And there have been some people who are just flabbergasted that this was an issue or a problem that was hurting somebody's feelings, or somebody wished this was
Mhm.
different, because they've never had the courage, I guess, or the venue to vocalize it. So when you have a arbitrary third person, that's one of the benefits of being a consultant, because you go in as almost like a mediator or a marriage counselor in many cases, and put things on the table that they're not open enough to broach that subject.
Right.
They have a fear, or there's going to be a retaliation or something. So there have been many opportunities to enlighten teams and make them better. Sometimes it's not comfortable going through it, just like a intercession or a counseling
Yeah.
session. But in the long run, if you come out and everybody's hugging and saying thank you, then it was worth the moments of maybe a little discomfort. But universally, no, I don't know that practices would do that unless they had a neutral third party like a Carol or a Joni or me that went in and said, hey, let's talk about these things.
Yeah,
So-
well, even at our meeting level, we separate doctors and team into programs. And when Lynn was asking that question, the first thing I thought of, Rosemary, was OrthoCamp. For
Oh.
14 years, there were 4 of us. Rosemary and I were involved, and 2 other consultants, and we did a doctor team retreat in Mexico. One year it was Dominican Republic, but the other 13 were all in Mexico. And that was a venue to bring doctor and team together. And so
Yeah.
all the topics we discussed were seen by both perspectives, from a team point of view
Yeah.
as well as the doctor. And I thought the format was wonderful. The format was
was.
great, and probably something we should look at. You can teach and train, but it's so important to have both doctor and team together in the same room, hearing that same message.
That's it. And that's one of my negative feelings about the AAO program, because we separate the doctor program and now we have the team program. And so often we'll be given a talk to 500 team members, and the first thing they say is, God, I wish my doctor was in here. Oh, my doctor needs to be hearing this. No, they're over in the other room listening to something clinical. So having a venue like Carol mentioned, like OrthoCamp or any smaller meeting, because we only took 200 people, it was easy to give personal attention and for people to stand up and start crying and share a personal story or a personal concern in their office. And by the end of those 4 days together, everybody was friends, and doctors were visiting each other's practices. And, we helped to form some lifetime friendships by bringing people out of their office environment, away from their uniforms and their telephones, and giving them an opportunity to play in the sand, but then come together every day and have some real meat to help grow their practice. Remember how many doctors used to say, I benefited more from this than going to an AAO where there's 15,000 people and I'm just a number? When you can get them, I think, out of the office venue and out of a big crowd, it benefits the practice more.
I just
And they're
want to
more likely
point
to
something
open up.
out
They're going to
to-
open up.
about the 3 of us who are on, well, Nikki, you're included in that too. Most of the consultants in the business, in this ortho business, have been a team member.
Yeah.
And now are owners of a business. And there is a very fine line, because I can guarantee, Nikki, I knew you when you were working with your doctor. I know that we were all the best employees that anyone would want to have, anyone. And yet, as much as I thought I owned that business as an employee, when I went independent, and you don't have the safety net of the 1st and the 15th of the month, everything changes.
Yeah.
My point is that the three of us and so many of the other consultants have actually a foot in both camps. We know what it's like to be an employee. We know what it's like to be a business owner. So we are able to listen to both concerns and find that happy ground. One of my favorite quotes from one of my doctor referrals was, Joan says what every team member wants their doctor to hear and what every doctor wants their team member to hear. But that's true of all of us, because we have had our foot in both camps.
Right.
We know what the challenges are. We know what the wins are. We know what the losses are. We know what the obstacles are.
Well said, Joni.
Yeah, that's a great.
I think also
way
that
to
gives us
sum
more
things up.
gives us more credibility with the team members, because
Exactly.
we have been in their shoes, and some of us for a very long time. We know what they're feeling, and we know how bad they feel when they're not thanked and how great they feel when they are thanked. And, it's different when you have lived both sides.
Yep.
We've hit our time, so we are right at the end of our window.
No.
Sorry to cut everybody off.
Oh, that's all right.
But
Okay.
but this will be, like I said earlier, we have this recorded, so we will share this with our door donors. And if anyone else is interested, I'm sure we can get them a copy, because I think this was really good information and a great opportunity to just hear from everyone and hear about their experiences. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
If there are some questions after this, can they contact you?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they know how to reach you. So if those of you listening today or listening later on the recording, feel
Right.
free to direct any questions that may come up to Jackie, and she will disperse them to the three of us, and we'll continue on those conversations.
Perfect.
Yes, definitely.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Ladies.
Good to see
Have a lovely
everybody.
weekend. Enjoy
Thank
the
you, you
weekend.
too. Thanks again so much. Great.
Well, everybody's